Welcome to the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast, where we all get together to learn more about performance testing with your host, Joe Calantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. Today, I have a special treat for you. It's on a topic I rarely see any information on performance testing, audio, and video, and we have some awesome experts with us. Today, we'll be talking with Domeniks and Nikolajs all about performance testing, audio, and video. Domeniks is a QA engineer at Test Dev Lab. He works on audio video quality testing projects and keeps an eye on new developments in testing. And Nikolajs is a audio video testing manager, R&D lead, and engineering manager at Test Dev Labs. So he has a lot of responsibilities there. As I said, I think this is a topic that, especially as COVID has shown, audio and video is really important. I think a lot of teams haven't been on top of it. And this is the episode for you to get on the ball now, to get ready to start doing more audio and video performance testing and testing in general. You don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. This episode is brought to you by SmartBear. Listen, load testing is tough. Investing in the right tools to automate tests, identify bottlenecks, and resolve issues quickly could save your organization time and money. SmartBear offers a suite of performance tools like Load Ninja, which is a SaaS UI load testing tool, and Load UI Pro, an API load testing tool to help teams get full visibility into UI and API performance, so you can release and recover faster than ever. Give it a shot. It's free and easy to try. Head on over to smartbear.com/solutions/performance testing to learn more. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really great to be here. Thank you for noticing our work, and we are really happy to be here and be part of it.
Awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, I saw something on LinkedIn and it brought me down a rabbit hole of a topic I haven't seen much on. So I was really excited about seeing that blog post. And also there's a YouTube video on the science of audio and performance testing. So we're going to touch on a bunch of these topics. Before we get into it, is there anything I missed in either of your bios that you want the Guild to know more about? I know they were kind of brief.
Yeah, so my name is Domeniks, and ever since I've been in Test Dev Lab, I've been involved in large audio video testing projects, working on apps that are used by a lot of people and that need extensive investigations and testing and constant things that I need to delve into and learn just to understand the processes that are going behind the scenes.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, and I think I guess I'll mention something about myself. So thank you for introduction, Joe. So yeah, I'm looking after many different projects regarding audio video, and as you mentioned, audio and video is a hot topic right now. COVID is still carrying on, and it doesn't look like we're gonna quickly recover from that. So there is a lot of things going on in audio video. And regarding my bio, I was always, like, through all my life passionate about audio. Was making music, and also in the end I ended up working as a sound engineer, doing live concerts, theater, and also a lot of that work was around technical troubleshooting and organizing the work. So, and then life brought me into the information technology, where I quickly reutilize my skills.
That's awesome. It seems like a lot of people in testing have a music background. I started off as a music major, and I started getting into digital audio, which got me into the computer, and then all of a sudden I got into testing. So it's funny how that leads us to where we are now. So I'm just curious to know, though, why audio and video at your company? Is that something your company specializes in, or is it like something you just found yourself doing a lot of testing and then you specialized in it?
I think, Domeniks, let me take this one. So yeah, Test Dev Lab, one of the specialities is audio video testing, and we started with that a long time ago before COVID started. So Test Dev Lab overall is 10 years old as a company, and around 5 years we are doing audio and video quality testing. So actually when COVID came in, we were ready to scale, and we had already processes in, so we could offer to our clients to test audio and video quality products. Because also, for many companies also started to work on the new functionality. It could be video conferencing, or it could be like streaming products. So everything around audio video just plummeted.
Domeniks, it seems like almost audio video to a lot of people seems like a black box, or you need to have a specialized set of skills in order to test it. What skills do you bring in order to be able to do that? Is this something you had to learn on the job, or is there anything you recommend people knowing?
I would say that's something that most people have in their personalities. When I see my colleagues, for example, there's a big attention to detail, definitely, and a lot of patience, since also testing involves finding the smallest details. All of these apps that are in the market are in the main scale awesome product, but they lack in those small areas which are extremely crucial. So anyone who has the attention to detail is just someone who excels in these things. And we at TestDevelop just like to look at those things very carefully and get the most information possible out of them.
So how does it normally work? A vendor comes to you and says, hey, we have a mobile app that we want to performance test, and that's very heavy on audio and video, or is it like Alexa? Like what kind of audio video applications are we talking about?
So I would say it could be divided to three, I guess, main parts. So first part will be very popular right now, video conferencing solutions, and it won't be just something very similar to Zoom. There will be some niche products, something like medical applications, where we even have like emergency vehicles, so technicians can call to the doctor and there will be very important decisions made over the audio and video services. So very like important, even like life-saving. So very important. And also solutions such as simultaneous interpreters, where also you can choose the language and listening to the conversation in different languages. So that will be first batch of like popular products. And second one will be streaming. It could be video streaming, like think of services as YouTube Live. Then it's very important for viewers to have a great experience, to have low latency, to have good quality, to have also network consumption not so high. So it all should be balanced together. Like you should not have any gaps in your performance. And third part I would say is audio video calling applications. Yeah, where it's utmost important is audio quality, and you don't want to spend too much data in the call. So it also should be kept too low, because as we know, like half of population in the world lives in countries like Africa, India and China. And internet plans quite expensive and salaries are not so high, so this should be taken in the mind.
You brought up a good point. A lot of people's like, it's just audio and video on YouTube. Why do I care about performance? But I know, especially with COVID, to visit a doctor, I personally had to use an audio video app to speak with the doctor. So you'd want that to be performant. So it's a good thing to make sure that, we're not just talking about trivial things like a YouTube video. So I would think you would need a big lab or a big setup in order to actually do this correctly. How do you work that? Do you have a special setup? And I would think, like you said, everyone's different. So how do you manage device setup and all that?
So we have laboratories at each of our locations where we have physical devices. So although emulators can give you the idea, we think that physical devices are something that's important for the real world scenario, because it gives the actual result that the real users will see. We recently switched to a new dedicated network setup with access points that have virtual routers, so that gives us much better stability and coverage. We can put limitations to the mind's desire to mimic almost anything in the entire world.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, I would think it would be hard. How do you mimic like data centers in certain locations? Because sometimes I'll be running a live stream and people in the US are fine, but then you'll have people saying, it's awful for me, and you find out they're in a different time zone or a different location. Is that something you need to be aware of as well with performance?
Yes, of course. Just as I said, we can mimic the network conditions all over the world. So we've done research, and if a client wants to know how the app will react to network conditions in, let's just say, India, where there could be just 2 megabits of available bandwidth and maybe at random times 50% of packet loss, we can do exactly that and see how it reacts, report the findings.
Yeah, another point is we have internally built tool called Loadero, and it's also used quite extensively for load and performance testing. And we actually, via using Amazon Web Instances, we can bring additional participants from different places in the world to the call or to the stream, and it sort of utilizes automation, so we can specify what this particular user, what actions he does, so he can connect to screen share, or we also can specify what sort of media he will broadcast, so be it like active video, or because there can be different types of videos, like as we right now talking, we can specify that as a live chat video where you have certain background and you just have have these head movements, which doesn't take too much bitrate, but there are different content like esports where you have everything moving around and colors changing, which will also dictate how network will be consumed. Yeah.
Right, so Domeniks, earlier you were talking about some top issues you ran into with audio and video quality. I thought maybe we'd go into each one. I don't know where I got this, either from your blog post or for the video. The first one was you had like top 5 performance issues listed. The first one was low bandwidth handling. How do you handle that? And how do you find these issues for low bandwidth handling?
So usually there are very smart solutions to that. So there can be adaptive bitrate, or it can be set to a certain value. The key is to find the right balance. And we can help see what the balance is right now. Is it negative, or does it have some give? So if a standard from the client wants their, let's say, video streamed at 1 megabit per second without stalls, we can check at lower bit rates. And the issue usually lies between finding the balance between video quality and fluidity of the video, the playback, rebuffering, and so on. So we do some extensive testing.
Like bitrate network problems, and what you mentioned is actually from our webinar. So first I would quickly tell how we actually get this data. So one approach is to sniff packets from the device itself, or use Wireshark on the device itself if it's, for example, desktop. But in our solution, we can grab traffic on the router itself and save it as a trace, and later analyze it and look into overtime data and look into averages. So the issues we sometimes see with a product is incorrect behavior of a bandwidth estimator. So application, it will have a bandwidth estimator, because if, for example, video resolutions encoded as in video streaming or as in video conference, like when you're using WebRTC, application adapts to network available. And the bandwidth estimator is a part of application which is responsible to understand how much bandwidth is available for a user. And there are many things to check around bandwidth estimator. Good approach is to conduct changing bandwidth test. So for example, in beginning, for user is in very good network, 100 megabits per second. Then his network drops to 1, then even maybe drops to 100 kilobits per second connection. And we need to be able to check that firstly application will adapt, and it won't take a very long time. So user would not abandon the application or maybe switch off video completely. And second part is also to check how application adapts back if bandwidth is available again. And in some cases, it can take up to 1-2 minutes to adapt back to good quality, even if bandwidth is available. So it means that bandwidth estimator is not so proactive, let's say.
So Domeniks, in your blog post on visual quality, you acknowledge network conditions are really tightly connected with the visual impression you get from the app when it's under load. You talk about subjective testing. What does that mean? Is that a real person looking at it when it's under load to say, oh, it looks good to me or it doesn't look good to me?
Yeah, subjective testing, as the word implies, yes, that means an actual person looking at the video. Of course, depending on the test, we can look for different details. We can either look as a user and just see whether it is watchable, or actually give scores for each video, or look for artifacts manually. And although on smaller devices, a lower resolution might be quite critical from objective algorithm standpoint, possibly for the user it might be barely noticeable. The typical user might just glance over it. So having, again, a balance of objective and subjective values when testing is great to give you a complete view of a system, especially for a video streaming service.
So a lot of questions I get from people is, how do I even test a video from a user's perspective? Can you automate that? Is there any visual validation? You can take an image and then compare the image to what it's actually looking like? Or is it all, you need a real person to look at it?
In general, as Dominik already mentioned, there is subjective approach, which usually is extra added to objective. And with objective approach, the most common, what we use also in our company is full reference and no reference approach. So for full reference, for when you are evaluating video files, or you're evaluating a broadcast where stuff you get, you can fully correlate to the original file. So you have a reference file and you have degraded image which is processed through the environment. And industry standard metrics are VMAF, SSIM, and PSNR. And VMAF is one used in Netflix and proposed in Netflix. And we use this one also extensively. There are still important development tasks to be able to utilize that full reference metric. You need to come up with a solution to align frames, because during your video you might have some freezes or dropouts, and reference video, it will be full video with over 30 FPS per second or 60, whatever it was originally. But then reference video might have some freezes, stalls, drops. Then you would need to create another copy of a reference video, which will be exact same as degraded. So it was about full reference. And second one is no reference, and we internally use Brisk. There are different models, algorithms, but we decided to go with Brisk, and it doesn't need reference image to compare with. It generates scores based on a machine learning algorithm, and you can train that model. So for example, if you always test with the same content, for example, you go through the different applications, you compare products with the same content, then you're able to train the model for this particular video. So you get as close as possible to subjective actually evaluation. And underneath, Brisk has a lot of advanced scientific video processes, but I think it's a bit out of scope here for this podcast. Yeah.
Nice. So besides video, obviously people always ask me, how do I test audio? Once again, in your blog post, Domeniks, you talk about audio quality, and you talk about a tool I haven't heard before. I don't know if it's the main tool you use, PolQA. I guess my question is, how do you test audio, and what tools do you use to do that?
Yeah. So with audio, we go with objective-only approach mostly, and there are two most common algorithms to evaluate audio. First one is Polka, and we need a license for that. So any company which would like to use Polka needs a license. And second one is Viscol. It's actually from Google, I think developed around 10 years ago, and it's free to use, but you need to train the model as well yourself in order to produce results, expected results. And in our experience, Polka corresponds a little bit better. I won't even say a little. Polka corresponds better to human perception. So, for example, if you have bad audio quality, for example, the codec, the sampling rate of audio maybe 8 kilohertz or 16 kilohertz, or codec consumes not so much bandwidth, which might be very good in some cases where you don't want a lot of bandwidth to be consumed. But Polka will register that. Polka also will register if you have jitter in audio, so sample will speed up or it will slow down at some point, or there will be drop, and the amplitude will be quite relating to the subjective evaluation. And also inside Polka, there are two modes. There is a wideband mode. It's for recent technology where we have sampling rates of up to 32 and 48 kilohertz, which means that audio frequency will be up until 20 kilohertz. So high quality audio. And there is also narrowband, which is sort of for more telephony products, where you have 16 kilohertz sampling rate, so quite a narrow band. So yeah, so two different products, also different little approach with audio. And also on top of that, it's about quality, but also Polka is great because it returns to the testers latency patency results as well.
Oh, nice. So now we touched on a few of these already. Top video quality, performance issues a tester needs to be aware of. You talked about the low bandwidth handling, packet loss handling. Is anything else that seems to be a critical piece when it comes to what you need to test when you're testing video audio? Like, does device performance issues ever come into play? And I guess, does your lab handle all types of configurations? How do you even test for that?
Yeah, there are many objective things that you can just gather through various metrics, like video quality metrics like VMAF we were talking about. But there are many things that one could glance over. For example, your app might perform in a great way on the newest, greatest device, but it could just fall flat on an older phone with an older Android version, or maybe just one that's made for low-income markets or developing markets. So we have a lot of those physical devices, and it's not just a few. We have over 1,500 devices that we do active testing on, and we can not only simulate any network needs, we can also do actual testing on actual devices that the users would use in real life, not just the newest S21s or 12 Pro Maxes, but also anything something that an everyday user would have.
Yeah, I would like to add also to that it's actually very important because in many markets of, like mentioned before, India and Africa, very popular are low-budget phones, and actually their performance will be also low, and application needs to account for that. So we still always want adequate performance on even budget devices. Yeah.
So either Nikolaj or Domeniks, just curious to know, when I was starting off as a performance engineer, just finding out how to test a simple system with concurrent users to me was really difficult, and getting it correctly was hard. I assume with you have all these different clients, all different audio, video quality needs, different apps. How do you even plan something that difficult with when devices come into play, regions come into play? Just curious to know, like, how do you handle different scenarios when you're testing? Do you have a framework you follow or anything like that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's quite important one. Yeah. So first of all, I think in our company communication style is communication culture is very good. So knowledge is shared across the colleagues, and even upper management is really helpful. Like if you have doubt, if you have question, like things are brainstormed, and like from the question to solution, there is not like a long way. So we all feel like everything is possible to solve. So I would say this is the first one. And the second one is we do have a framework, and we do have, as mentioned Domenikss, we have laboratories so-called, and this is environment where we have dedicated network, we have audio evaluation set up in, and we have hardware ready to evaluate video. Of course, it changes from the customer, from the product to product, but there is a certain baseline, from where we work around to meet the needs of a client.
Domeniks, I don't know how much I touched on your blog post, but
so what I really touch on is these few big aspects and 5 basic things that we really need to experience and really delve into deeper and research and find out and just disassemble metric by metric. But also I would like to add that sometimes in this kind of testing, some simple things should not be missed. Like, sure, how fast an app loads, how fast a video loads is really good to get in a performance aspect, but even things like content and fulfillment need to be taken into account. And sure, there are many challenges to that, and it's hard to give the accessibility to your content for every kind of human, but it's a topic that's even more important daily and something that the developers should look into, especially now that regulations are coming in that require certain level of accessibility in the apps.
No, that's curious. Do you notice like different countries then have different requirements that you have to test against as well? That must be difficult to know and keep on top of.
Yes, our experts' heads are definitely currently pulsating with each new change.
Like probably the most important also part is when you get all the metrics, you need to make the proper analysis and draw the conclusions that everyone will understand, not just engineers, developers, but also product managers. So it should be both like low level and high level. And all of those metrics, they should be connected together, because if you see bad performance in one metric here, you might be able to see good performance in another metric here. So, and then you need to understand with a team, is that the behavior we would like to have? Maybe we can lose some quality here, but we need to make sure the audio quality stays on top.
I mean, I was looking at some of your graphs. I didn't know, like with so many metrics, how do you know what correlations are? What happens with you see this metric bad, how does it correlate with another metric being bad? And looking at these graphs, it seems really difficult to even dive in to know what's causing maybe an issue like that. So how do you express that to your teams then, so that you're not getting a lot of false positives like, hey, look, this metric's bad, so I assume that it's caused by this other thing. How do you know what the correlation is between what's causing the issue?
Yeah, we have a process called validation. So before actually putting the presentation together, putting the final results, we go through the tests. We have a team for that, which actually checks if results we have, if they comply with what we really see in real life and what the user will experience. And by this, we can feel that we are secured with the data we have.
Awesome. Okay, guys, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their performance testing of audio, video? And what's the best way to find or contact you?
Yeah, I would say my best advice will be find information on the web and do not hesitate to contact the guys who made this blog, who made this webinar. Just write to them, just ask them, like, like it wouldn't hurt. Like usually in my experience, people are quite often and they will share the knowledge because that's what all about, making the world better.
Absolutely. Domeniks, anything? Parting words of wisdom?
Also, it's good to criticize all these apps, but we should also remember there's a human behind everything. So that's my word of wisdom.
No, that's a great point for sure. And the best way to contact you all or learn more about Test Dev Lab?
The best way is to go to audiovideotestlab.com. We have audio and video information there, our blogs, our link to the webinar, and also you can grab us on LinkedIn and write in private. Yeah.
Thanks again for your performance testing awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/P70. And while you're there, make sure to click on the Try Them Both Today link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about SmartBear's two awesome performance test tool solutions, Load Ninja and Load UI Pro. And if the show has helped you in any way, why not rate and review it in iTunes? Reviews really do matter in the rankings of the show, and I read each and every one of them. So that's it for this episode of the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed with creating end-to-end full-stack performance testing awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. Head on over to testguild.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and online testing conferences. Don't forget to subscribe to the Guild to continue your testing journey.